Alrighty, we're live. How you doing, friends? Ernie here. This is the Zero DTE podcast, episode 11. So we're really early into this podcasting thingy here. I hope great things for it. I hope that you subscribe and go to the Apple podcast. Let's see, how can you do that? You can go to zerodays to expiration.com. It's actually all spelled out. Zerodays to expiration.com, and then click on the listen button, and then you can click on the Apple excuse me. I have a little frog in my throat. Let's see, there's another way you can do it. Because it's so new, it's not fully indexed inside Apple's search engine. So you can actually go to your podcast app and then just search for zerodays2expiration.com. I'm wondering if you can search for my name too. Let's find that out. All right, let's go to podcasts. Of course, you'd have to know how to spell my name, I guess. Let's see, Ernie Varitimus. Search. Yeah, it comes right up. Oh, and there's an old podcast that I started with my daughter, but we never really moved on with it. But yeah, you can type in 0 days to expiration, or you can type in my name in the search, and then it will show up. See? Yeah, go there and subscribe, leave a review, make sure it's 5 stars, and help me out. That would be great. So what we're going to do today, it was one of those days where I was hesitant to put on a trade. And what I'm talking about, man. I think there's some pollen in the air or something. Today was what I'm talking about when I'm putting on a trade is for my service, the 0-DTE.com, or the 0 days to expiration service, where we trade the last day of expiration on options for the S&P E-mini futures contract. And we do that 3 times a week because there are, in fact, 3 contracts that are expiring every week, which is unbelievable considering that you get 3 opportunities every week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And there's plenty of volatility in the S&P to be able to capture a huge amount of premium. Now, lately, that volatility has dropped dramatically, as many of you know, although the past few days it's been kind of fluttering right on the edge of what's comfortable. But when it drops down below, when volatility on the VIX index drops down below, let's say 15 and a quarter, 15, anything below there, and then trades start getting wonky. We're right about there right now, just a little bit above. But what happened today? The reason why I didn't put on a trade, I actually put on an unofficial trade, and so it's still going on, and it may or may not work. The reason why we didn't do anything today was because Jerome Powell was testifying in front of Congress, and it's his semi-annual report that he gives to Congress. I have it right here. Hold on. There we go. It's his, it's what's called the Semi-Annual Monetary Policy Report to Congress. Now, this is really important today because what everyone is focused on, everyone in the market, the big institutions, just about everybody, we're all concerned about inflation. Of course, the Fed has been telling us that, yeah, sure, we'll admit that there is inflation, but it's only transitory. Of course, CPI numbers came out earlier this week and just totally blew away that notion. If you look at the trend of inflation and the CPI over the past, since the beginning of the year, it's on a slope like this. Now, the interesting thing is when you look at let's get this thing out of the way for a second. We'll get to it in a second. So when you look at the CPI over this past year, it's reported once a month. It's been going like this. It's unbelievable. Now, if you look at the forecast of the Fed compared to the actual, they have consistently under forecasts. I mean, hugely under forecasts. Yet they're trying to tell us that inflation, there's more evidence that inflation is actually subsiding and that they expect it to be transitory. I read an article from Reuters this morning, and apparently Reuters is on the payroll of the Fed and several other major news outlets. I'm sure the AP is also giving a report that because inflation was higher than ever before, or at a rate that they haven't seen for a long time, it must be nearing the end. So they're trying to carry the water of Jerome Powell as well. I'm not sure how long we can see inflation going up until they crack, until they say, quite frankly, I don't think that they can ever admit that there is an inflation problem. And no matter how high it gets, they'll just keep on saying, well, we're almost there. It's just about to turn over. And then when it becomes unbearable, they'll still put on the show. They'll come up with some other, some sort of hack story that will try to allay the fears of the market, but it won't work over time. And over time, the market's going to freak. And then they'll come out with something else. Who knows? I mean, the only power that the Fed has at this moment, because they've painted themselves into a corner by printing so much money, and as we know that the true definition of inflation is an oversupply of the currency of that particular economy, where you put so much currency into circulation that it devalues that currency. So you need more dollars to buy X amount of goods. And so therefore, the price of goods will appear to go up. So we'll look at it and say, hey, prices are going up. But what's really happening is that the value of the dollar is going down. It's a very, very different scenario. Prices aren't going up. Their value remains the same to us, but the value of the dollar is going down, meaning that we need more dollars to purchase said products. Now, so anyways, good old JP, Lord JP, was in front of Congress today, and he reported to them, and I'm going to go through this report and see what we can find out what Jerome is actually saying and whether or not that comports with reality. Because wouldn't it be great if we lived in a world of reality where what we saw was what actually happened? That we don't live in an opposite world, but we do. We live in a made-up fantasy world by our government and the Federal Reserve. And we're complicit. We go along with it. Most people say, oh, you're right. We do not see inflation, JP. That is deflation. Yes, that's what it is. It's deflation. What we're seeing is not inflation. It's not going straight up. It's going straight down. Or, no, straight up is straight down. Oh, boy. Anyways, all right. So it's interesting when you get this is the minutes here. And No. This person always calls at this time. Every time he calls, I say, hey, I'm on a podcast. Anyways, Ranking Member McHenry and other members of the committee, I am pleased to present the Federal Reserve Semiannual Monetary Policy Report. At the Federal Reserve, we are strongly committed to achieving the monetary policy goals that Congress has given us, and that's maximum employment and price stability. Now, apparently, there were some Fed governors that have been giving speeches around. They do that to sort of spread the narrative. And their version of what their goal is seems to be a little bit different from what the stated goal is. I mean, we're talking about, race equity and all kinds of other things that they've been talking, pandemic stuff, everything under the sun except for what they're chartered to do. Anyways, I don't know how much commentary you want to hear from me about this, but anyways, here we go. We pursue these goals based solely on data and objective analysis, but no one has been able to really figure out exactly what that analysis is or how objective it is. It doesn't seem objective because what they see or the data that they're analyzing doesn't comport with what is actually happening, or at least the analysis doesn't, or they have a funny math maybe. We are committed to doing so in a clear and transparent manner. It's hard to get through this first introductory paragraph because it is so filled with falsehoods that it's palpable. It's just unbelievable. Today I will review the current economic situation before turning to monetary policy. All right, so now we're going to see what the Fed's view of the current economic situation is. Over the first half of 2021, ongoing vaccinations have led to a reopening of the economy and strong economic growth. Now, all right, strong economic growth. Every report that I've read reads exactly the opposite of what one would consider strong economic growth. You cannot have growth, right, without people who are actually there producing, creating the growth, right? And that we don't have. Maybe I won't get through this report at all. Maybe it'll just be one big commentary. I don't know. All right. I keep on losing my place. Supported by accommodative monetary and fiscal policy, real gross domestic product this year appears to be on track to post its fastest rate of increase in decades. Now, the reason why it's posting its fastest rate of growth in decades is because we shut the friggin' economy down. Kaputs, it was gone. The economy, gone. No economy. So any growth would appear to be faster than in decades. Had we not shut the economy down, the more likely situation is that real growth would have declined. All right. Household spending is rising at an especially rapid pace. I'm not going to be able to get through this. We just had a report on CPI that clearly showed that spending was down, income was down. All right, let's try it again, Ernie. Keep it together. Boosted by strong fiscal support, accommodative financial conditions. That was the only truth. Very accommodative financial conditions, and the reopening of the economy. Of course, the reopening of the economy has been selective at best, where any particular governor that is, far left is probably still locked down. I think California's gone in lockdown again. Housing demand remains very strong, and what? Housing demand remains very strong. It is waning. So what they're doing is giving you half-truths. They're not telling you the current situation. They're giving you the sort of average situation over the past few months or several months. I mean, housing is slowing down for sure, right? We just had a housing report that showed that pending sales has dropped dramatically, right? The prices of homes is increasing dramatically. So this is just, I can't even get through the first part. All right, let's try this again. Housing demand remains very strong, and overall business investment is increasing at a solid pace. Okay. Is that why Wells Fargo has decided to pull back all credit lines? I mean, as described in the monetary policy report. Oh, it's further on. We'll find out just how it's progressing at a solid pace. Supply constraints have been restraining activity in some industries. Okay, so again, half-truths. Most notably in the motor vehicle industry, where the worldwide shortage of semiconductors has sharply curtailed production so far this year. Of course, no one's buying the cars, not because there are fewer semiconductors, but because the prices are so friggin' high and nobody has any money. Well, that's not true. Actually, people do have money. For the first time in a long time, people have been able to sock away money because they've gotten their free UBI from the government, and now they're spending it on. But they're not spending it on new cars, which require these supposed held-back chips. They're spending it on used cars, which don't need any chips because they already have the chips in them. As a matter of fact, the recent CPI report claimed that 1/3 of the increase in CPI was due to a unusual growth in used cars. Again, half-truths, not telling the whole story, holding back critical information, just saying what you want to say to advance the narrative. That's what I've read so far. And I haven't even gotten, oh God, a third of the way through it. We won't go through, I won't torture you with too much more because I'm not sure how much, well, it's really a commentary on me. I don't want to torture myself any further. I haven't read the report yet, so I'm reading it for the first time. I didn't get a chance to see him actually address Congress. Didn't have the time for it. Conditions in the labor market have continued to improve. Right. Again, a half-truth and holding back the information that there are still 6 to 7 million people who are able to take jobs, who refuse to take jobs because they're still receiving their government stipend. There are millions of unfilled jobs. Most of the jobs that have been filled have been in the service sector. All right. So one has to wonder how this is all going to go down. Labor demand appears to be strong, very strong. Yes, it is very strong. That's true. But again, he's not saying or coming back with the fact that nobody wants the jobs. They're making more money sitting on their ass. Job openings are at a record high. Hiring is robust, and many workers are leaving their current job to search for better ones. Oh, indeed, employers added 1.7 million workers from April to June. However, the unemployment rate remained elevated in June at 5.9%. And this figure understates the shortfall in employment, particularly as participation in the labor market has not moved up from the low rates that have prevailed for most of the past year. Job gain should be strong in coming months as public health conditions continue to improve. What about the new strain, the Delta variant? That's causing some places to lock down again. What's going to happen then, JP? As discussed in the Monday policy report, the pandemic-induced declines in employment last year were largest for workers with lower wages and for African Americans and Hispanics, despite substantial improvement for all racial and ethnic groups. The hardest hit groups still have the most ground left to regain. All right. Let's see if we can... I really don't have to read anymore. That's it. I'm done. Let's turn this off. There we go. All right. Everything that comes out of the Federal Reserve is a story that comports to the narrative that they want to portray in order to keep the wraps on this economy. Because if they told the truth, the economy would crash. If they told the truth of inflation and that they would have to start tapering, in other words, unloading the Fed balance sheet of securities that they've purchased and getting rid of those, the $8 trillion that they have added to the economy, $8 trillion. That is the pure definition of inflation. That is why prices are going up. Not because people are out of work or not working, because most people were working. Anyways, let's go to the questions. Alan saying, hey, Ernie, we need the usual 2 p.m. market closing rally to get under our cozy profit. Oh, he's referring to the unofficial trade that we put on today because I didn't want to put on an official trade. Oh, it looks like that unofficial trade is going to make money. Yes, that's right. JP, tell them what they want to hear, calm the waters, and that's exactly what he's doing. As I said earlier, or alluded to, the Fed has painted themselves into a corner by this unprecedented money printing. You know, if you were to take a look at the overall national debt, or the amount of money that we have printed and put into our economy, and that we hold and are paying interest on, the first $1 trillion of that 22 trillion, I think, in debt, took from the beginning of the country up until about, I think, 2005, first trillion. The second 5 trillion only took another 4 or 5 years. The next 5 trillion only took about 2 years. The final trillion, 5 trillion, has only taken about a year and a half. I don't know if you see where that's going. That's exactly where our debt's going. So next year, instead of this year adding $6 to $9 trillion into the economy, where do you think that we're going to be next year given that rate of increase? Do you think that we're going to be able to just stop, go the other way, or level off? Do you think that is ever going to happen? It's not. Next year, we're going to be adding 10 to 15 trillion, maybe 15 to 20. Maybe another doubling. And then the year after that, another 20 trillion, 30 trillion. We're at that point now. We're on the hockey stick. You know, here's the hockey stick. Right there. Here's the blade of the stick. This is where we're at. We're right here on the bottom of that stick. And we're going up. That is, you know, it's the pure definition of hyperinflation. I don't know how they're going to stop it. I don't know that they can stop it. The whole thing with spending, it's the ultimate drug for the people that we put in power. The more that we give them, the more they want, and the more power that they exert, and the more laws that they put in place to perpetuate that power. And that's what it's all about, keeping their power. All right, so let's get to zero DTE. Talia wants to know, so what are your main rules for 0 days? And she's, Talia, I'm assuming Talia is a woman's name. If it isn't, I'm very sorry. I'll say they want to know, what are my main rules for 0 days? Now, first of all, let me just say that our 0 days to expiration strategy is not a systematic strategy. In other words, you wouldn't be able to take our rules and then put them into an automated system and then just churn out trades. As a matter of fact, I don't think that you could do that with any 0 DTE strategy, no matter how much that they claim it may be systematic. If systematic, purely systematic, were on this end of the scale, there we go. And then purely discretionary, we're on this end of the scale. We are not here, but about here. So that leaves about, 15, 20%. So about 15% of our strategy has what I would call some rules, guidelines, methods, processes. And then of course, all of these require you to have a certain level of acumen and skill in performing these. But ultimately, each one of these processes and rules and so forth, the decision-making capability doesn't come down to a binary decision. There's a qualitative decision that you make. Now, I guess, it's true that we could probably program a range of criteria into those and then give us what we think is the best answer programmatically, but we don't. We do it on a discretionary basis. So for that point and for that reason, I call it a discretionary system. Now, what are the major rules? Well, it's pretty simple. We put on a trade when we feel like there's enough volatility and enough, or implied volatility and enough premium that allows us to put on a trade that where we can collect that premium. And either that means putting on a credit spread of some point, or a debit spread that has the majority of theta collection around it, like a butterfly. In fact, we use the butterfly as our main strategy. We do basically three things. We first do a global macro analysis to try to determine the direction that the market is most likely to go in. Not only the direction, but the magnitude of that direction. And this is a fairly complete analysis where we look at the complete global macro condition, including economic reports, as well as the geopolitical condition, and anything else that might influence price, right up to the point of where the market opens. Now, for us, because we're trading futures or trading options on futures, the futures market or the session for that market actually opens the night before at 6 p.m. Unlike trading options on the SPX, the market actually opens at the cash market at 9:30 in the morning. So we have, because we're using futures and not the SPX, we have the benefit of a 23-hour-a-day market, so we can analyze the entire market and put on a trade anytime we want, capturing more premium and potentially getting out before the market even opens with a profit. And that has happened. So that's the fundamental difference between us and trading E-mini futures and the SPX. We choose the E-mini futures because they have more opportunity, more potential premium, volume, which you do not have in the SPX, and a 23-hour-a-day market, which allows you to do have a more continuity of analysis. So anyways, we do that analysis, we get our bias in order, then we do a volumetric or volume profile analysis to figure out the market structure. And with that market structure, we can imply different scenarios and behaviors given price or momentum of price going across that structure. We do that analysis to figure out where are the inflection points and where is price likely to go. We build these scenarios. Then we create an out-of-the-money spread, a butterfly spread typically. We could also do an out-of-the-money vertical spread, but a butterfly is much more effective because we have those two short strikes. And we place that coincident with the volume structure and our analysis in such a way that it gives us an asymmetric profile. Asymmetric meaning that we have much smaller risk than the potential reward. And so that's basically what we do. And then from there, we enter that trade, and then we're managing our profits as opposed to managing the risk. We manage risk simply by putting on an asymmetric trade. That's our primary way of managing risk, by putting on a very, very small risk-led position that has huge potential profit. We use things like probability of touch, expected move, implied volatility, the amount of available premium, the market structure, our bias to determine where's the most likely place that we think price will end in that session. Then we put on the trade. If the trade is worth putting on, we have certain criteria for the type of risk to reward that we'll take. If the risk to reward isn't big enough, we simply won't take the trade. Or if it's with just like, somewhere within that range and there's something big that could be happening that day that could throw us all off, such as JP speaking at noontime, then we'll also wait for something like that to pass before we put on a trade. So that's essentially what our strategy is, and our rules, if you want to call it that. They're not rules as much as they are methods, processes, guidelines, criteria that we use, and then our best judgment. That best judgment is developed over time. Now, one of the things that I emphasize with people that join the service, and by the way, if you want to join the service, you can just go down below. There's a link, and it's 0-dte.com/try. We have a 4-week trial where you come in. We'll charge you for each one of those weeks. Right? You can stay with it as long as you want or as little as you want. But if you decide that at any time that you want to join the service, then I will refund the amount of that trial towards the price of the service. So essentially, you're getting the trial for free. If you decide not to go through it, well, then you've paid for the privilege of using our strategy and seeing our IP exposed. So there's that. So that's why you pay for it. If you join, we refund that money. Most people I've found that take the trial earn enough within that 4 weeks, believe it or not, to pay for not just the service for a year, but actually pay for it for multiple years. Now, I'm not promising that. I'm just saying that that's what I've observed. All right. So that's the service. Right now, we're in an unusual situation in this market in that we have very low volatility, inflation that's on the rise, a worsening economy, despite what JP is telling us, because what he is telling us and what we're seeing in economic reports are two different things. And one way you can tell that is that the market keeps on going up. Oh, wait a minute, Ernie. You said we have a worsening economy, yet the market is going up? How can that be? Those two things don't comport. It's like an oxymoronic world that we live in. Yes, and that is true. That is because we do live in opposite world. We live in the Fed opposite world, the world of idiocracy, where good news is bad for the market, but bad news is good for the market. And that is because as long as we have bad news, the market loves that and pushes it higher and higher, because from their point of view, that means that the Fed will continue their accommodative policies, keep interest rates low. And the market loves that. They love free money. So that's why the market is up. That's why it appears to be good, but that is also why the economy is not doing well. If the economy were doing well, then the Fed would have to put the brakes on. If they had to put the brakes on, then we wouldn't be able to service the debt. Do you see the corner that they've painted themselves into? If they do what you would normally have to do and, put a little bit of water on that fire just to calm things down a bit, then the cost of the debt skyrockets. And this problem keeps on getting worse and worse every year. As a matter of fact, next year it's going to be maybe an order of magnitude worse. And so they're going to have to come up with a whole new narrative and set of lies to try to convince everybody that everything's fine, it's just transitory, we're just waiting until we get over the next hill. Once you get over the next hill, it's going to be a beautiful valley down below. But that hill never ends. You get over that hill, And once you get over that hill, there's another hill, then another, then another. And each hill bigger than the last. That's where we're actually at. All right. That is the inflation story. That is the transitory inflation story. My ass. So all of this type of analysis too, are things that that we practice. I mean, we want a realistic view, but we also want to figure out where the Fed is going. And I know that you hear a lot of sarcasm in my voice because that is basically my first language, English being my second language. That is how we have to approach this market, with a good deal of skepticism, logic, and reason. We see the truth, but with that, we understand how to respond to the truth, because we know that the people who are supposedly holding the reins of this economy are, or think they are, pulling something over on us, that they are hiding the real truth. Now, Wall Street doesn't care. They will do whatever Jerome and company ask. That's because they are fully committed to making money. They know that as long as they just play the game, they'll keep on making money, and Jerome won't upset the apple cart. That is the truth. And so we recognize that too. And we're more than willing to play around what is actually happening and play by that false truth, or that version of the truth that the Fed wants to portray. Because that's how we make money. And we want to make as much money as we possibly can, as fast as we can, and protect our asses as that future, that uncertain future that is coming with a greater velocity every day. Let's see, Jacob says, but Lord JP says he's not concerned about the Treasury's increasing interest expense. Of course he's not concerned, because that's what he has to say. Because if he were concerned, then those words, now remember, when they prepare a speech, when they give a speech, every single word, syllable, inflection is parsed and evaluated before it is delivered. So what they say is very important. How they say it, the intonation is very important. Because if people read into something differently, they'll... Look, everyone's on edge here. Things are not rosy. Things are horribly bad. Horribly bad. Not only for monetary and fiscal reasons, but also for political reasons which fold into each other. We have a commander-in-chief who is not commanding and is no way considered a chief at all. The guy is suffering from dementia, and he's getting worse every day. You see it when you watch his speeches, which they don't show on the national news, but you can clearly see them on C-SPAN or any other place that just puts the unfettered, uncut event. The guy is losing it. It's sad to say, but other countries are seeing this as well. And that's going to affect us from not only a political point of view, but also from an economic point of view, because they're going to start taking advantage of us however they can. These are realities that we have to accept. And that's where we're going. I don't see this charade lasting too much longer before there is some kind of change in this whole situation. There has to be. There has to be, in order for us to, ensure our survival and keep the markets going without some major crash. Or maybe they'll let it crash and get on with the great reset. Who knows? Ernie, do you see gold and silver skyrocketing? You would think so by now, with interest rates, with inflation out of control. You would think so. But the bond market, the gold market, they are also taking the cues from the Fed. They understand what they can and cannot do. So until the Fed can no longer cover up the real problem, which is, we're very close to that point, those resources, gold and other inflationary killing assets, are going to be subdued. Bond prices will keep going up, and interest rates will keep going down. We are heading towards negative interest rates. Will we ever adopt it? Will we get to that point before everything collapses? I don't know. How long can this charade go? It's another thing. I don't know. You know, because we've recognized the problem for so long, yet it keeps going. It keeps going. The market can stay irrational longer than most people can stay solvent. So that's why I don't think that you can just sort of load up on gold or load up on anti-inflationary type of assets or strategies. You have to be a little bit more nimble than that and wait for those signs of the crack so that you can then react when the time is right. In the meantime, you need to acquire hard assets. You need to acquire as much cash, as little debt as possible, unless it's real cheap debt. Cheap debt is good actually right now. If you can get money that's cheap, like so for instance, probably the best use of personal credit right now would be like a home equity line of credit. If you have a home equity line of credit, it's probably with a very, very small interest rate, like sub 5%, maybe even 3 or 2%. And if you have, say, $50, $100, $200,000, man, that's like free money. That money could be used to, well, it could be used a lot better than just sitting in your home. Your home is going to inflate anyways. Might as well use that money to buy other things that will inflate along with it, because if you don't, the value of that money is going to deflate. I'm sorry, inflate, or its value is going to deflate. The money itself, price will inflate. So, and buy less. So use it now to buy things that have a value that will maintain their value. And it's cheap. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. And with that, we're going to say and wrap this up. This is the end of today's show. Please go down below, subscribe to this show, leave a comment, smash the like button, all that stuff. Go to Apple Podcasts. You can also find me on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music as well. And use, whatever your aggregator of choice is. Go there, leave a positive review. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe to the podcast. We're going to come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday without fail, giving you more pearls of wisdom from the dude right here. Buy lots of ramen while it's cheap. No. Ramen will probably always be cheap. You need to buy ammo. Right? Ammo its price is just going over the top. And its supply, its availability is dwindling fast. Buy ammo. Even if you don't have a gun, buy ammo. I don't know. Can you do that? Probably not. All right. We're done here. Thank you very much for showing up. Again, if you're interested in the trial for Zero DTE, go down below. It's 0-dte.com/try. All right. Thank you. Peace. Where's that off button?